It's the Pat Chair Podcast. We are on. Hey. We're on episode Bodie's barking. I think this is episode 6 or something. Doesn't really matter. We'll title the topics. This is gonna be called. I don't know what it's gonna be called yet. We'll find out the title by the end. But what I wanted to talk about, Pat, is a lot of our conversations encompass politics.
Yes.
And basically, I'm sick of politics, and I think a lot of people are sick of politics, but when people become sick of something, I think that's kind of when it becomes most important. So we live in Philadelphia.
Yep.
Philadelphia was definitely a battleground, not even exaggerating. It was literally a battleground last year. But for the election, I feel like a lot of people are kind of worn out now, and they're like, I don't even want to think about it until 4 years. We have to have another election. That's the problem, though. We have elections way more often than every 4 years, and everyone gets involved every 4 years. But then there's all the ones in between that a lot of people kind of just forget, and things happen. And I feel like it's not always what people want to happen because so many people kind of tune out. So in Philadelphia, well, even to begin with, actually, a lot of people don't really participate in elections to begin with, even in the main ones. I think it's 50, 60%. Then when you drop down to our primaries, I think we're electing the district attorney in Philadelphia, the primary for the district attorney next month. I can't see the turnout being more than 10, 20%. How do we fix that? Is that okay? What's a better way to do that?
The name of the game with elections are, if we want better outcomes, we need to make the process more accessible. That's now, once you drill down into how to make elections more accessible, that's where you start to get the arguments. Because I think that if you had a Republican and a Democrat facing on, we're all right, how do we get more people involved? If the moderator were just would you both agree with the goal that the more people are involved in the political process, the better it is? They both have to publicly be yeah. But when it comes down to it, people in both parties, but mostly the Republican Party, tends to not want more people involved. Hence, you see a lot of the voter ID laws that are being passed all over the place. The voting law that was just passed in Georgia is widely seen as restrictive. Honestly, man, first of all, you need to move elections out of the weekday.
I agree with that.
Any working person knows what a pain in the ass it is to try to get to the voting booth, even if you are mindful and committed to voting.
Or make it more. I feel make it multiple days. Why is it only one day?
Yeah, well, okay, so multiple days. That's where early voting comes in. So you can still have the main event, be on a single day, but you could have in-person early voting, or even remote early voting happening in every state in the union. So why not that? Why not solve the whole need to, you can still do multiple days. I think that's great, but why not make election day a holiday?
Right.
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with, and again, business owners would cry foul at this, but what's wrong with making sure that if a person, if we can't make it a holiday, that costs too much money or something like that, then why not having some kind of reprieve for working people to be able to go and vote and make sure that they're not risking their jobs or their pay. So hourly voters are going to hear that and be well, anytime that I'm not clocked in, I'm not making money, right? So it just, you should be able to vote, and there shouldn't be any kind of hindrance based off of your circumstance in life. Because let's face it, these days, especially in the free market economy that we live in, things are arbitrary based off of how easy it is to vote.
Yeah.
oftentimes where you live, where you grew up, what your race is, how much money you make, your gender, are all factors that play into how easy it is for you to cast your ballot.
So I agree. We got to vote more. We could talk about that, or like more people need to vote. We could talk about that all day. But I don't want to get too into the
Sure.
details. I definitely agree. We need to vote more. What else with the voting process would you change? Do you think like voting once every 4 years is good? Do you think presidents having 2 terms, Senate having unlimited terms is okay? Do you think there should be more primaries, less primaries? Should primaries run the same? Should there be more options? Should you only have 2 options? What are your thoughts on some of those?
I like that there are 2 4-year terms for the president. On the one hand, it does seem like when you get a good president, you blink and then they're gone, and you kind of, we had Trump and people were like, man, wish we could have a 3rd Obama term, or something like that. There's an argument within political science that free and fair elections act as term limits. So in theory, a bad politician has a term limit because they'll be voted out. But we've seen that in reality. That's not really how it works, because you've got octogenarians, and again, I don't want to be an ageist, but I guess it's more or less a person's age, but you've got people who occupy the Senate, for instance, for 4 or 5 decades. Yeah.
And ones that don't seem like a lot of people even like Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham. It seems like no one likes them, but they just are here forever.
Because that's the power of the incumbency.
Yeah.
I think that it is extremely, and this is coming from a person who does this as a business, running a candidate's campaign and trying to get them into office against somebody who currently occupies that office is a monumental task. It's depending on the office you're talking about the statistics of like once you get in there and then you get past like your first re-election, there's like absurd stats about how safe you then are in that office. That, statistically speaking, like, you're talking like in the 80s and 90s as far as the surety of you remaining there. I think it should be hard to stay in office once you get there, whether you're good at your job or not.
Right.
I think that compensation once you're in office should be tied to how productive you are. How many times, are you missing too many votes? Are, you trying to like pick up per diem, but you're not actually doing the work. And per diem is like a kind of a little like per day expense account you get.
I would argue against that, just for dialogue's sake too. Like, I kind of think that politicians shouldn't get paid at all. But that could be another discussion. But why I don't think they definitely should get paid based on performance. So a lot of CEOs get paid based on performance, and they didn't previously. And what happened when a lot of companies made the change is basically CEOs made decisions for short-term gains, short-term profits, not thinking about the long-term at all. So what's it called? They make decisions that are going to get the profit really high this year, but in 5 years when they're gone, the company is going to be destroyed because they like used all the resources, whatever. So think about that for a politician's standpoint. If they're like graded based on how well they're doing this year, they got a surplus in the budget, whatever, and then they get paid a lot. Well, then they leave office, and in 5 years, the city does horribly because that politician didn't leave any reserves or whatever. I just feel like it's hard to weigh those things, and it's and then like you'll have some politicians like maybe making decisions for them for now, not for like the future for everyone. I don't know, just a thought.
It's funny you put it that way because that's already happening in politics,
Right.
because of how many, like on the flip side here, a state representative in Pennsylvania has to run every 2 years. That's insane. It essentially means that politician is always running for office. With the way that campaigns work, you get sworn in. I'm already getting ready with my off year clients. My off year meaning they're not up for reelection this year. We're already getting ready for next year because of how much campaigns cost and because of the way campaigns work in America. So in some ways, I would advocate that it depends on the office you're running for. I think that oftentimes we vote a little too much in this country as far as frequency.
Right.
So we vote too often for some politicians. We have, depending on the state you're in, there's lots of referendums, propositions, and stuff, and all of it is trying to make our system more democratic. But we end up working ourselves into a trap because we're not involved enough. Elections aren't accessible enough. And working people that I think that have a little more skin in the game, as far as electing people that will, better our society, make things a little more utilitarian. They don't have access to the voting booth in the same way that people that are either well off or already retired. Their incentive structure is different, right, than a lot of us that are kind of coming up and need long-term decisions to be made.
Is that
yeah. She just rolled up here. So the answer, Jer, is it's a contradictory system, right? We want to get more people involved. I think sometimes we vote. There are certain offices that like run for re-election, like that people don't know enough about. So I think that we can't make restrictions on term limits. We can't say, oh, this term limit needs to be longer, or a term should be longer. That we should cap this at a certain age. I don't think we can really make those decisions until we get more people involved.
Good point.
Because, like you said, like the percentages, an off year like this year with people fired up, we're hoping for 20%, maybe 25% as far as involvement goes with judicial elections and county and municipal elections happening this year. But even then, that's pretty, it's like, okay, for an off year, it's better than some. It's not enough. And so, there are some very interesting, for anybody that's out there that's watching this, that votes in PA, there are 4 proposals on the ballot in May. And they're on there strategically. They were put on there by Pennsylvania Republicans who calculated that not enough people are going to be coming out to vote. So they think they can slip things by the citizens of this Commonwealth. And some of them have to do with the governor's ability to handle emergencies. And I wonder, is that a coincidence or is that because we are still dealing with a global pandemic in which certain decisions that executive officers have to make in order to save people's lives?
Yeah.
And so, it's they're playing games with our elections because not enough people are involved, because they know that even if it's a few percentage points higher than they're expected, they know that not a lot of people are paying attention. Not a lot of people have the time to research. The way our government is supposed to function is that I elect you and you go and do that on my behalf.
Right.
The system, we're not all supposed to necessarily be tuned in 24/7. Like you said, people are tired of politics. Well, that's kind of how a Republican system of government is supposed to work.
Yeah, because that's what I was gonna say. We're a republic. We're not really a Democrat society where like we're supposed to elect people that we trust to do everything.
Yes.
Yes. And that's not what we are. Where I feel like maybe we should go more to a republic system, because like I feel like it's possible these days with the internet. I would like actually to vote on a lot. I know I feel like we vote too much. It's like something you said. I don't disagree with that, but I feel like I'd like to vote more on some like certain policies where it's like, hey, Biden is deciding between this and this today. Let's vote on it. Governor Wolf is deciding between this and this today. Let's vote on it. Where it's like some of those decisions I'd rather have a say in because I don't trust that the guy I voted anymore is going to make all the good decisions. I like him more than the other, but I do want to still like give him a little bit of a heads up of what I'm thinking on certain things. So like,
I like that, man. I mean, I like that idea. If we were all given the tools and the time, then yeah, I'm down to kind of vote on more proposals, amendments, stuff, things we're going to change that directly affect people's lives. I really like that. You know,
the tools, you're right. We don't have the tools for that.
You know, but instead, you know, we've got, you know, we're voting for like Prothonotary and Reporter of Deeds and share, you know, and like, I think that regular folks just don't know necessarily who these folks are. And some of them are really great citizens. You know, they're real, like they're doing the work. They're wonderful people. But let's face it, like they're elected by a small minority of registered voters who are an even smaller minority of adults in the US.
Right.
You know, like they're a portion of a portion, and it's not a big portion. Yeah. So that's the trouble with trying to argue, like, do we vote too much? Do we change term limits? Do we do this? Do we do that? You know, until we get enough people involved. And I think it should be kind of a carrot and the stick thing. You know, there are countries that it's like mandatory to be registered to vote and to participate. Yeah. I mean, this is America. You'll never be able to like make anybody do something like that, nor do I necessarily think it's ethical. But I think we should make it as accessible as possible and try and make it more fun, more engaging. Use different terminology, you know, when we're kind of dealing with this stuff, because people get confused.
Definitely.
Like which is understandable.
Well, they confuse you on purpose.
Oh, they absolutely do. I mean, why? It's on a Tuesday. You've got to. I mean, look at like the easiest way to register these days is online. But what about people who don't have internet access? Because internet access is so arbitrary, or don't have access to computers and stuff. Like, what are they supposed to do? Okay, so you got to rely on the post office. Yeah, that's going real great for folks right now. You know. So there's all these barriers that are thrown up on purpose.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I think at the end of the day, we are moving in the right direction, slowly but surely. It's a way.
Mail-in voting. That's a big deal.
People are just aware of what's going on a little bit, even just being aware of how messed up it is. At least people are a little bit aware. But I think that about wraps up our time. I think Brownie's calling you in. She's saying it's dinner time.
Come on, Pop.
She's voting for dinner.
Yeah. That's an easy choice for her. Dinner or no dinner. Dinner wins every time.
Talking to you as always, though, Pat.
I love you, man.
I hope everyone enjoyed our conversation too. Like and subscribe. We're finally promoting it. We're finally posting weekly. We finally got into the routine. And hopefully we'll have a guest on soon. But most importantly, I get to talk to my good friend Pat every week, and that is what it's all about. Love you, Patty.
Love you, man.
See you next week. Have a good one, brothers.
See you next week, man.